So before we dive into the WordPress dashboard and how to use WordPress, I did want to take a moment to show you what's out there and what the competitors for WordPress are, as well as the different options that you get with other content management systems, because we did cover that a little bit in the previous lecture, but I just wanted to show you briefly what's out there and what developers and web shops are using today. I'm going to start with Expression Engine. We have a history with Expression Engine. We actually used Expression Engine early on. Expression Engine has been around for several years. I believe it's coming up on maybe 20 years old. Don't hold me to that, but I mean it's been around a while. Unfortunately, it had some downfalls. It was a great CMS for developers, and it never really was able to pull in the support of non-developers. The nice thing about Expression Engine is it's fully customizable. It runs on PHP just like WordPress does. In the beginning, though, it was only licensed. So you had to buy the license. In addition to that, in the beginning, if you wanted to upgrade, you had to purchase a new license every time you upgraded. That quickly fell away because obviously people are like, well, that's stupid. Why do I have to purchase it every time I want the new latest version kind of a thing? And then it came to, well, as long as you have your license, you're fine. Well, the support system wasn't very solid because if you lost your license number, it was extremely difficult to find out what your or who owns your license. So you couldn't just say, hey, I purchased a license for moduet.com and I lost my license number. Can you help me out? And they're like, oh, well, it's not registered in your domain. What's the email you used? Well, this is the email. I can't find that email address either. So it became really annoying, especially if maybe you had a turn um, of employment and you don't know who actually set up your license. So it was difficult to track down who owned that because you do have to have your license number if you wanted to update. They have come out with several versions since they first came out, and it was rumored that they were going to actually close their doors a few years ago. Then, just like WordPress, some people stood up and they just said, hey, wait a second, this is a pretty solid platform, especially for developers. And so I think it may have changed hands with some people because Expression Engine was owned by a different company. Not sure who owns it now. The nice thing about this is it is now free, so you can download Expression Engine for free now. It's an open source platform, but there are add-ons and features that you would have to pay for. So um, it is probably the most robust that you'll see. Well, no, that's not true. I'll come to something in just a second. It is robust and it is great for developers, but it's still not worth the while, I guess. There are developers out there that love this because they've only been with Expression Engine, and that's great. But the fact that it almost went under and they almost closed up shop just shows that they're having a hard time competing in the industry. Drupal is one that has been around for several years, almost as long as WordPress, if not longer. This is another CMS that is built for developers, but they've made a way to transition this to non-developers as well. It has a huge developer support system. You can try Drupal. Here's the thing. I think it's still open source. It should still be open source, but again, I think you have to license it now, um, which is fine because it does come with a pretty solid support system. You see a lot of large sites built in Drupal and a lot of large companies that have a big developer background to support Drupal. You can try it out for free if you want to. This is another one that's built in PHP. And um, we have a little bit of a history with Drupal. We built some sites in it. The problem with it was and I don't know if it's still the same now, but you couldn't just, it just didn't work out of the box. You had to do a lot of configuration, not just with Drupal itself, the system, but also the template files. So it was really hard to just get it up and going and then start developing in it because you had to install a theme for the backend because the backend wouldn't even display. So if you logged into Drupal, nothing would have CSS, nothing would have layout. It was very archaic. I don't think that's the case anymore. But if you like development and you want to kind of explore something that's a little bit challenging, I would recommend Drupal over Expression Engine. And like I said, a lot of large firms already use Drupal because they have that developer support system. Then we have Joomla. Joomla's been around for a while as well. I don't know if it's been around as long as WordPress, but it is an open source platform. However, there are hurdles with Joomla. Today, it's good because they've made updates to be competitive with the other content management systems out there. But this was one that was very tricky to upgrade from version to version. So what would happen is you would have Joomla, it's free, it's open source, that rocks. But then when an update for Joomla came out, you couldn't just click auto install or update my Joomla version. You or your developer had to download the updated version and install it yourself, which meant you needed to have access to your hosting files. You needed to have a little bit of an understanding of file structure and database structure and the back end of Joomla. So if a developer had built your site and then handed it over to a company and they're managing it on their own internally, a lot of times what would happen is their version of Joomla just stayed static and they never made any updates. And whenever you don't make updates, it becomes a huge security issue as well as a functionality issue. And so that would happen between different versions or different patches through 1 and then through 2 and then ultimately into 3. And I don't know because I haven't seen Joomla in a while. We have a little to no experience with Joomla. I think we've worked on maybe 2 sites in the entire time we've been open, and it wasn't fresh installs. We just were consultants that came in and made some changes. But it is a nice platform if you're looking for something similar to WordPress, because there are some similarities between the two. But because we're a WordPress shop, I'm going to tell you, if you're looking at Joomla, you might as well look at WordPress because you're going to have a whole lot more positive experience with it. BigCommerce is starting to gain some ground. We're actually starting to research BigCommerce because larger firms like a content management system that's specific to e-commerce. Now, WordPress has its own e-commerce platform, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But what we're starting to find out is third-party point of sales or third-party inventory management companies, they have yet to fully integrate with WordPress. So if you look at BigCommerce, and I'll show you another one, this is gaining a lot of ground. It's got a strong support system. It's affordable, and it will scale with a company, which is what we look for when we're looking at solutions. We want to know, does this scale with an organization? Like, can they come in at an affordable support price, and then as they grow, they can jump through different relationships with the company? The nice thing about BigCommerce is it does integrate with WordPress, and so you have the best of both worlds. You have the content management system of WordPress, but then you have the cart system of BigCommerce. Then there's Magento. Magento, it's a lot. It's a content management system specifically for commerce. If you're a mom and pop shop trying to sell things online, you're going to get lost really, really quickly in Magento, and you're going to have to start paying for stuff once you start to grow. Magento has an open source solution, just like WordPress is open source, but it's not going to get you to where you need to be until you start, paying for the license of it. We only see large companies using Magento, and I'm talking like corporations. The problem with Magento is its price. It's about $20,000 just to license Magento. And then on top of that, you need to have a pretty solid development team that can work in it. We are researching this for a couple large companies. We're not sold yet. We've only been actually steered towards Magento because their point of sale can link to Magento, but I mean, that's kind of locking these businesses into paying for software that they may or may not need to be paying for. So, if you work for a large corporation, you may be exposed to this. Now, the way Magento works is it's everything. It's your site, it's your cart. There are ways to take the open source version, I think even the licensed version, and bring it into WordPress just like BigCommerce. But if you're already paying 20 grand for a content management system, why are you going to waste your time feeding it into another content management system? Now we're at WordPress. So there are two different versions of WordPress. The first is WordPress.com. You can go to WordPress.com right now and get started on a website. It's 100% free because WordPress is open source. What you will learn is it's ran on their system, it's ran on their hosting environment, and so they're going to control some things for you. For example, if you start a website today through WordPress.com, you will be a subdomain of WordPress.com. They will offer to mask that with an essential domain. So, like if I click start now, I think it's actually the first question they ask you. Let's see. They know that I've been here before. Let's create a dummy account. And you'll see what I mean. So if I just said Moduet marketing, hope we never have to use this in the future. There we go. So what it's going to do is it's going to try and help you purchase your domain, or you can review their free version. I might be jumping ahead. I tried to do this. Oh, there it is. So you can do their free version, or you can try and get a domain through them. If we do the free version, it's moduetmarketing.wordpress.com. So that's the subdomain of WordPress.com, but it's free. But for advertising and marketing, it's not going to be very useful for you. And so if you're going out on your own and you're not really sure about hosting and performance and security and all that kind of stuff, you just want to get a website up and going. We have directed clients to go to WordPress.com, register a domain. If you already have a domain, they'll help you map to it. But you then have a masked domain using WordPress.com, which will come with almost all of the same features that you get with the next version that we'll show you. And you're up and going just as quick and easy as if you went to Wix or Shopify or Weebly or GoDaddy. And a lot of people don't know about this because WordPress doesn't advertise themselves as a hosting environment or as a web development environment, and they don't advertise themselves as a competitor with GoDaddy or HostGator because they're open source. Like they're not going after the commercial market. They're going after the market that wants a reliable product. But I encourage you, especially if you don't have hosting space right now or you're confused about what to do with hosting space, this is a great place to get in to the website world and be paying like maybe $20 a year because you're going to only pay for your domain. Then if you grow, this can transfer seamlessly into what we use, which is the full download of WordPress. So if you go to WordPress.org, you can download a copy of WordPress right to your system and then run it on a server. So people can run servers locally. Obviously, we take ours and we upload it to our hosting environment, and it runs on that server. But anyone can have this. So if you want to go at it on your own and create your own hosting account and build a WordPress environment on your own, this is how you do it. And then I did not show you, but WooCommerce. Let's look at that real quick. So for WooCommerce, this is the cart platform for WordPress. And what they've done is they have elevated WooCommerce so that it can compete with Shopify and other cart systems. So you can actually go to WooCommerce today and start your new store. And it works very similar to WordPress.com, except it's the cart solution wrapped into it. And again, because it's WordPress, this can translate over to a self-hosted version of WordPress like we use.